What's up, everyone? Smalls here, bringing you another weekly episode of Small Talk, brought to you by FTN. Check us out on Twitter at FTNBets and FTNBets.com. While you're over there, check out my new injury tracker, which will be your best friend this season to track those injuries for your skilled players while you are setting your lineups. As always, this episode is brought to you by our sponsors at Tipico Sportsbook. Download their app and they'll match 100% of your first deposit up to $750. Every week I bring on a guest, so I'm going to do the same thing. This week I will bring a guest on to talk about the NFC West and more of the NFL futures. Let's dive into it. Joining me now is Adam Pfeifer from FTN. Finally on my show with me. It's only taken this long. What is going on, my dude?
Good, yeah. It's a little overdue, but we're here. It's all that matters. And it's way too hot out around here in the PA area right now, so I'm just trying not to pass out pretty much. But I'm doing good.
It's literally what it is. Way too hot, extremely hot. Even the room I have right now
Yeah.
up in Maine does not have AC in it. We only have AC in a couple of rooms. So this is not the most fun, but we'll jump right in and talk about the NFC West, an area that is definitely hot. Most of these teams. We'll start with the 49ers. Let's talk about that backfield. Wilson just got hurt. Mostert, is hanging on by a dear thread during OTAs and minicamp. How do we feel about this backfield? Considering Sermon and Gallman not going to see Wilson, I think, for a big portion of this year.
Yeah, so I'm still kind of in the belief that, as long as he's good to go, Mostert's going to be the guy, but mostly everybody is under the assumption that he's going to get hurt anyway. So Sermon's obviously the popular option in that backfield. He fits the scheme really well. I ran a lot of zone in college, and that's what they do in San Francisco. So, but for me, especially in fantasy, I just kind of want to just draft whoever's going later. And right now, especially on underdog, they're literally going back to back, right after each other, and that. Okay, there's fireworks, so that's cool. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's June 30th, but okay.
They've been started. It's been going on since June 1st. So.
I don't get it. I'm not even a dog, and that bothers me. Grow up.
It drives me crazy.
But yeah, I think Mostert's really good, and they legitimately one of the fastest running backs in the league. The offensive line's really good. There's going to be a situation probably at some point where Sermon's getting 15 carries a game, but I still have it ranked Mostert over Sermon. But obviously, there's, Sermon's the rookie, he's the exciting player, and Mostert's been banged up the last couple of years. But until I know Sermon's taking a lot of first team reps in minicamp, but I just got to see what happens. And right now, I'm still in the belief that Mostert is going to be at least the 1A to start the season. So we'll see.
Right. And it's crazy, actually, because we saw Gallman, last year with Saquon go down, with Freeman go down, Gallman end up having those couple weeks where he did very, very well. And he was a waiver darling, very good for redraft, someone that you could snag,
I had him on my one team where I lost McCaffrey. He was massive.
Exactly. So, and he honestly saved my booty in a couple leagues because I was totally screwed someone that had Saquon in some of those redraft leagues. I think we see Gallman almost have the same kind of role that he did for all of us in fantasy last year, where he's going to have a couple big weeks because God forbid someone gets hurt and they need him to come in. I think we see Gallman still get some time on the field.
Yeah. He's gonna be a best ball guy. He was especially scoring touchdowns last year. He was good, but it's gonna take a lot of injuries for him to be every down type of workload.
Absolutely. I don't think he'll ever get there. I think that's kind of his role in the NFL even. I heard it that time. And let's talk about Trey Lance. When do we see Trey Lance? But after bye week, what's the situation? Because, Jimmy G is still capable. I always say this where he's still a capable guy where with the talent that they have on that team, it's not that he can't get the job done. So, but Trey Lance, I think, obviously, for everyone knows, I'm very high on Trey Lance. I think that his talent exceeds that of all the rookies. It's just that he wasn't quite NFL ready. So I think he did fall into a system that's better for him. He can take that time on the bench to maybe fix a few of the problems that he does have. But when do we see him? Do we see him this year?
I think we do. Like, if you go back and look, like quarterbacks drafted in the top 5 of the NFL draft, like they play in year 1. It's just a matter of when. But like, he was obviously a pretty raw prospect coming out. Like, doesn't have a ton of pass attempts under his belt for his career.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with Trey Lance is like, is he more talented than Jimmy Garoppolo? Absolutely, but this Kyle Shanahan offense, like they make it. I don't want to say easy for quarterbacks because it's still like the hardest position in sports, but like the way he draws things up for these receivers to just make plays after the catch, like it's a very quarterback friendly offense. So like I don't see like if Jimmy Garoppolo enters the season as a starter, like San Francisco, like he's gonna have to play really bad, I think, to lose that job. But again, it's just hard to see a quarterback that you invest that much in to trade up to get not start in year 1. So I think it's going to be legitimate like quarterback competition throughout training camp and preseason. And if Trey Lance is further along than they thought he might be, like after the first couple weeks of preseason, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he started week 1. But obviously, like the only two quarterbacks that we know for sure are starting week 1 are Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. But yeah, I would be pretty surprised if he didn't play at all this year. Like I'd be legitimately shocked if that was the case.
It would be shocking. I think also too another part of it is, can Jimmy G like stay healthy enough to not have Lance at some point end up having to come in regardless of what their plan was overall. So is Lance someone that you're targeting in Dynasty, not in redraft? I would assume, I think, because with him, I'm a little bit more, I think we'll see Fields maybe before we're going to see Lance.
Yeah, Lance is yeah, definitely in Dynasty, and then like in redraft, like he's kind of a really fun last pick of your draft because nobody's gonna like if you're in like industry leagues, nobody's really drafting 2 quarterbacks. But
Mm-hmm.
like if you miss out on like the top 5 and miss out on like Russell Wilson, like a lot of the proven guys, but then you go with a back end quarterback 1 and you want to just pair him with Trey Lance because similar to like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson when they broke out, they were going like the end of drafts if they were drafted at all. And I'm not saying Trey Lance is going to be that good, but like in this offense with his talent and the system and the pieces around him, like I think he's a really sneaky like just last pick of your redraft. But then in Dynasty, obviously, yeah, he's like you can make the case he's right behind Trevor Lawrence and ahead of Justin Fields and these guys because of the investment they made in him and the talent and the pieces around him.
For sure. You being a Bills fan, he reminds me very much like Josh Allen in the sense where, I think there is a learning curve there. And it might take a little bit longer, but I think the payoff is going to be massive for him because I think that athleticism and the skills are very, very much there, but you may not reap the reward like immediately in Dynasty the way that you would from maybe some of these other guys that we know are going to start immediately. But talking about guys that are going to start immediately, this is a little bit off base saying Kyle Pitts' name, but I say that talking about Kittle. There's a lot of talk about the tight end position. Where are we ranking these guys? Is Kyle Pitts getting ranked a little bit too high? Is he going a little bit too high? Because he's starting to get a little too rich for me in some of these leagues that I'm drafting. I mean, he's going before Kittle in a lot of these leagues, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, he's pretty much a locked in 4th round pick now, and I think that's too high. And it really doesn't have anything to do with what you think about rookie tight ends. Like I don't really care about that. It's the fact that you're passing up on so many good receivers and stuff in that 4th round. And I still like after the Julio trade, like a lot of people moved Kyle Pitts to like tight end 4, and like I'm just not there yet. Like I still would rather have Andrews and Hawkinson, and I still have Goddard really close. So it's like I'm not going to take Kyle Pitts despite the immense talent and the ceiling and the pass happy offense that he's in 4 rounds ahead of Goddard and 2 rounds ahead of Hawkinson and a round and a half ahead of I'm just not I would just rather take the receivers than wait and get tight ends who are going to have better or similar if not better production a couple rounds later. So I love Kyle Pitts. I'm excited to watch him, but like 4th round is just too high for me. Like I haven't drafted him yet, and I probably don't see myself getting to him much at that 4th round ADP.
Yeah, I think also, it's very easy, and this is a new thing, I think, because I'm obviously new in the industry, and now that I'm on Twitter and listening to everyone, like, people don't see a player for one season because they got hurt and, like, forget the talent that they are. And I think that happened a lot with Kittle, too, where it's like they didn't see him, and now you see this flashy young guy in Pitts, and it's very easy to get a little blinded by that. And I think that's happening with a ton of guys throughout the league that were injured all year. Dak is one of them. Saquon is one of them. You don't see these guys for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, we need to pick this guy.
Do you like Saquon?
Yeah. I think he's, like, pretty good.
Okay.
Yes, I do. But I think that he's definitely falling too late. I think also Kittle, I've seen he's falling as well. I'm taking Waller before I'm taking Kittle, but that has to do more with the team over there than it has to do with Kittle, I think. I think that Waller is just set up to be in a perfect place to just continue to have great success.
Yeah, like it's pretty easy for me as well. Like, first of all, the Raiders don't throw to the receivers. And that's why Waller gets like 28% target share the last couple of years. Like, Kittle is still probably the second best tight end in the league, just all things considered. But between a run first offense and having Ayuk and Debo there, like, he's not really going to come close to Darren Waller's target projection. So if you want to make the case, you can just wait around and get Kittle, and you really like Kittle, sure. But if they were both on the board, and I wanted to draft a tight end, I'm not drafting Kittle over Waller. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah, there's no way. And I don't think that I don't think anyone could realistically look at the situation on both ends and decide that is the way to go. I think that Waller's going to have a fantastic year. But we'll move on from them. I will talk about them all night if we do not move on. So let's talk about Seattle. A player that I sold very early after the season ended was Metcalf. My big thing is I do not like when secondaries start to figure out receivers. It's like my biggest pet peeve. It starts to become a headache. Metcalf, I think for a redraft is fantastic still, but I think that his value was at the highest that we will see it this offseason. I even saw it start to go down a little bit. But what are our thoughts on Metcalf with what they brought on? How are we feeling?
I mean, like, I don't have him, like, as a top 10 guy in redraft. He's right outside there for me or close to it. Like, if you told me that the Seahawks offense was going to operate the way they did the first half of last year, like, it would be without question, like, all systems go. I mean, Russell Wilson was MVP of the league. They, I believe, led the league in passing rate on first down. Like, they were not, I hate it's so overused, but they were letting Russ cook, and Metcalf was obviously fantastic. He fits this offense with how Russ just, we did our podcast with Debro and Rich Rebar today, and we were talking about how Russell Wilson just always leads the league in end zone throws because he's so efficient, but he also just throws the best deep ball in the league, and that's a perfect marriage between the two. But we've heard both that they're going to just continue to run the ball a lot in this offseason and that they might throw the ball more. And if you told me Russell Wilson right now would throw the ball 40 times a game, not only would I have Metcalf and Lockett way higher, but I would have Russell Wilson like right in that Dak Prescott tier. But it's just been year after year, despite how good he's been, they just haven't wanted to do that. So, I mean, Metcalf's fine. I'm not really high, like incredibly high on him. I'm not low on him. I'm just I have him right where he kind of should be. So that's the same. Right. That's the same way I feel for Lockett as well.
Yeah, I'm not gonna let either of them slip past where they should go, sort of thing. Like I will absolutely be taking CeeDee Lamb in a startup dynasty before I'm gonna go and take Metcalf. I think right now, and I still don't regret the decision. I got like tons of value for Metcalf when I did sell him. I stand by it, and I think in redraft he's great, but boy, did he give me a headache last year. Like, it was just too much for me. Secondaries figured out too much. But talking about the running game, talking about Chris Carson, who is someone that is falling, I think, a little bit too far. I mean, he's going 5th, 6th round for a guy that maybe should not. How are we feeling about Chris Carson?
I mean, I've talked about this before. Chris Carson is legitimately the most underrated running back in the NFL. Like, he's so good. And like he has this, he has this label that he's always hurt, but he's only missed 7 games the last 3 seasons. When he's on the field, he's legitimately like a top 12 guy. In the full games he played last year, he was a top 10 running back in fantasy. 3.2 yards after contact per attempt. Average 4 target. Like he was quietly really good in the passing game too. Rashad Penny is not going to take huge workload from him. Yeah, Carson, like there's times where he goes outside the top 20 at running back, and that's just like a mistake. Like he shouldn't be in the Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin tier where he sometimes is drafted. He should be well ahead of that. So yeah, like I love Chris Carson. I understand people worry that he runs too hard and he could get hurt, but like he doesn't miss as much time as people think. And again, if Seattle doesn't change their offensive philosophy, he's getting 18 touches a game at minimum, and he's always really good. So yeah, Chris Carson is like he's kind of like my Marv of running backs. Like he's just
Yeah.
perpetually underrated. He's that dude.
Yeah, he's almost that sneaky like cheat code that no one really talks about. It's like there's always that one guy that for some reason he's just, and even this year it's crazy to watch his value drop to where it has, because I feel like he's shown to be a fantastic running back, especially with fantasy value.
He's been around a while too, and like a lot of people just like get bored of drafting the same players, right? Like it's the AJ Green effect. For
Low key, the Seahawks are boring. Like I love you guys, like I get it, but like it's not fun to watch them play that much anymore for some reason.
I mean, it's fun to watch Russ, but like you get 28 pass attempts out of him in like 75% of his games. Like
right, exactly. So talking about him, this MVP narrative that kind of took a turn a little bit. Moving forward to next year, what's the outlook on him? Because I think he's fallen a little bit for me personally, where I have him in my own rankings, how I feel about him next year.
I mean, he's going to be as efficient as pretty much the most efficient quarterbacks in fantasy are. It's been Russ every year. Like the last couple of years, it's been Lamar and Ryan Tannehill, but like we know Russ, especially with Tyler Lockett, like they're the nuts. Like they're the most efficient duo in the league right now. And Russ is going to be efficient. He doesn't run a crazy amount, but he still runs enough. Like his floor is like he's going to be like top 6, but the lack of volume is why nobody has him in the top 5 tier with Lamar and Kyler and Josh Allen and Mahomes and Dak. Like that's what crushes him. And like I said, like if I knew he was going to throw the ball 40 times a game, he would be in that tier. So like he's going to be really good. He's going to be really good, but is he going to be? Does he have top 3 upside? Unless the offense is what it was in the first half when he was that good, I think it's going to take them to change their philosophy or go back to that philosophy. They do have a new coordinator, so we'll see. But it's just right now I have him in that QB7 range, QB6 range, and really there's no reason for me to put him in the top 5 because I don't think he has that upside with volume and rushing like some of the other guys do.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned him, Kyler, who, everyone knows I'm very high on. For everyone that follows me, very high on Kyler. About to move him out of my QB1 because he mentioned that AJ Green is going to break out, which is quite ridiculous.
It's a bold strategy to say a 30-plus-year-old receiver is going to break out, but
but he also did the same thing I think we saw with Larry last year. I think he said very similar comments. He said that about Christian as well. Neither of them are going to break out. I stand by that. He's coming off almost a 4,000-yard season there. Does Cliff limit his success next year? How do we feel about Hopkins? Rondell coming in. I'm very high on Rondell. I think it was a very great placement for him. But what's up with Kyler?
I mean, like Kyler's finish last year probably should have been even better, but he had that shoulder injury where there was a stretch. There was like a couple weeks where he not only didn't run as much, but he didn't run at all in close. And that's when Kenny and Drake had that spike in touchdowns. So like if that doesn't happen, like his numbers are even better. And we know he has there's 3 quarterbacks, maybe 4 that have 4,000 passing and 1,000 rushing yard upside. Like Kyler and Lamar are obviously the guys that you think of for that.
Right.
The pace is obviously great. You have Hopkins. Kingsbury needs to kind of figure it out because he had Hopkins literally line up on one side of the field like 90% of the time. But now you have Rondale in there to kind of move things around. That'll get easier completions for Kyler. So yeah, I mean, Kyler's in people's rankings, he's the quarterback 1, or the quarterback 5. But like if you have him at any of those, just because of how good 1 through 5 is, like it's viable. But yeah, he's going to be really good. And again, if that shoulder injury didn't happen last year, his numbers look even better. So yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to like Kyler here in 2021.
For sure. And I think also part of it is, and that will bring me to my next point, is looking at James Conner and Edmonds. I think that takes some of the pressure off. Edmonds obviously is not part of that, but bringing on James Conner, I think you can take some of that rushing pressure that he has had. And that's maybe why he did get hurt, is I felt like, and he even said it himself, where he kind of at some point was running for his life a little bit, which you see happen sometimes when they don't have the support that they need. So I think that will give him a little bit of an upside. Hopkins is another one that for some reason this year, I think people are just sleeping on the Cardinals for some reason. I think that they did have a very good offseason, so it's a little silly to do that. But between Connor and Edmonds, which way are we going?
James Conner. Like I tweeted it and people were like,
me too. I got so much crap the other day.
Well, not even that. No, I tweeted that Chase Edmonds is like Evan Singletary in like the 6th round. Like just draft, if you want to draft Chase Edmonds, just draft Evan Singletary in the 10th round, because they're the same player. They're the the 1B, exactly. I guess, in an offense with a quarterback that's going to take rushing touchdowns. And like the only thing I will say is that Edmonds at least is a little bit more of an unknown. Like at this point, Singletary, we know his ceiling, even in games Zach Moss misses, is like a little bit capped. And by a little bit, I mean a lot bit capped. Edmonds still has that ceiling we've seen, but like they don't view him as an every down back. They bring in James Conner. I think Rondale Moore is actually going to hurt Chase Edmonds in receptions because they're going to operate in the same areas of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And then Connor's going to have the Kenyon Drake role, which, again, a little bit of it is skewed because of Kyler's injury. But Kenyon Drake last year, 19.5 carries per game, 239 carries, were 7th most in the league. He was 3rd in the NFL in carries from inside the 10-yard line. Like, if that's going to be James Conner's role, those are the high-value touches. So I just give me James Conner, who is still going after Chase Edmonds. I think by the end of the summer, that gap's going to tighten. But Chase Edmonds, like, I haven't drafted him yet. And I don't like to say, like, I'm just not drafting a player at all ever, because everybody at some point is a value. But I just don't see it with Chase Edmonds. Like, I understand the hype was there after Drake was before free agency. He was like going to be a 4th round pick, and then Connor went there. But I still think, like, if he's losing receptions and then he's not getting goal line work, which he has never done in this offense, and
right,
bring in James Conner, and like everybody says, yeah, but James Conner's going to get hurt. Well, if he's not getting workload, like Pittsburgh, they used one running back for years, and that was James Conner for a little bit. So like he's not getting the same workload. So if he can stay healthier, then if he's getting less touches, he's going to stay healthier. So yeah,
right, exactly. That's what it is.
Nobody agreed with me, but I think Edmonds is literally the same situation as Devin Singletary, but he's being drafted 4 rounds earlier.
Right. And I think people forget that, honestly, is like if a running back is not, like, that pressure can come off where you can hold on to their longevity and they're not required to do as much work. It's the same thing, people wonder why Saquon got injured. They got injured because they were expected to do too much for their role. So if you can give someone like James Conner, who obviously
was totally like a freak injury too. Like I remember watching that.
Yeah, it was right, exactly, injury. Absolutely. And I think I agree with you though. With Edmonds, it was never there for me, and I tried when players started moving, but I don't see it, especially with Rondale, with Hopkins. I just don't think it's happening. I think that there's just a low chance that happens there. I just don't see it.
No, I'm not really. Like I said, like there's running backs around him. Like first of all, I just rather take James Conner later, but then like there's even other running backs that are going right around him that I would just rather take. Like I would rather have Raheem Mostert. Like I'd rather have both the San Francisco running backs. And you can, like, even if James Conner misses time, like you can't guarantee that Edmonds is gonna be like a back end RB1, because he was bad in the one game last year without Drake. And that's not to say he's gonna be bad every game, but like everybody talks about not liking Devin Singletary because he's not gonna score touchdowns. Like Chase Edmonds is not scoring touchdowns either. He hasn't, and he still won't. So.
He's 100% not. Like, it's just like not happening. There's no shot. But so right now, Tipico has the Cardinals over 8.5 wins at plus 130. Under 8.5 is minus 160. How do you feel about the Cardinals? Because I'm very high on them this year. I think that they are in a good position. I think that it's going to come down to Cliff and keeping Kyler, healthy. But I think they could very much easily have that over without a problem.
Yeah, the over, like, just if you look at like the Cardinals, are the Cardinals a team that should win 9 games just outright? Yes. The thing that makes that tricky is the division. Like, this division, in my opinion, is the best division in the NFL, like, hands down. Like,
Yeah.
it is really good. I think all 4 of these teams could win 10 games. Like, they're all that talented. So that kind of hurts it. Um, their secondary is pretty questionable, but their pass rush is possibly going to make up for that because they have Chandler Jones and they bring in J.J. Watt. So, like, and yeah, I think Cliff Kingsbury is a huge part of it too, because we've seen him be really, really conservative on fourth and shorts. Like, if that changes and they start scoring more touchdowns, like, if they played in another division, I would be smashing 8.5. But they're gonna have to play these teams twice a year, and choosing like Survivor. Just don't even pick teams from this division for Survivor leagues this year, because I can't tell you on a given week if San Francisco is going to beat the Rams or the Cardinals are going to beat. They're all so tight.
Right. And imagine too, like I think about it, like you end up adding, Lance into this equation. Does that make it even more difficult too? When do we see him? And also another team that we haven't gotten to yet is the Rams. With Stafford going over there, what's the outlook like over there? What guys are we targeting as far as fantasy goes?
Yeah, so it's going to be really fun to watch the Rams actually be able to throw the ball past 5 yards this year. That'll be neat. Like, Jared Goff, his like intended air yards like under 5. Like, it was so bad, and Stafford's been top like 7 or 8 in average at the target like every year. So, and have you seen McVay like in interviews talking about Stafford? Like, he is literally like
He's
just
obsessed with
he's
him.
blushing. It's awesome.
It's so
Um,
cute. It's like legitimately cute. And I
it's
like
great.
actually love it. He's so happy.
It's so great. And like Robert Woods and Cooper Cup are known as kind of intermediate guys, but they can win deep. So they're gonna have their usual like 135, 140 targets, and a lot of them are gonna still be in the intermediate, but they're gonna get more deep targets, which is gonna be higher upside. And um, Robert Woods had less than 1,000 yards last year, which I don't think's happening again if he stays healthy, which he has been.
Mhm.
Cooper Cup is gonna score touchdowns again. Like, they're kind of like some of the easiest picks in fantasy, because you know what you're going to get every year, but there's a little bit more upside with Stafford there, and the
Right.
offensive
And
line
they
was
have a
better than
great
anybody thought.
defense too that's going to keep the offense on the field for you,
Hmm.
especially in fantasy.
Yeah.
Uh, do we worry at all about Stafford's transition? Because I kind of feel like Goff is going to have an easier time. I joke around that it's like being held back a grade. So the team there is not quite what he was given, but the kids that get held back a grade are a little bit ahead because they already did the work. So is there any concern with Stafford transitioning to this team?
Zero.
No, nothing. Not a single concern.
Nope.
Really? Okay. I believe it though. He's fantastic. And it's exciting because I think that there is a lot of pressure over him because, and it maybe a little unspoken, but for years, we've heard like Stafford, if he was another team, but I think he's going to finally get his chance.
Yeah, like he's gonna be fine. And like they have some field stretchers too. Like, they have Deshaun Jackson for the 2 games he'll play this year. That'll be fun. Tutu Atwell. Then like Van Jefferson is kind of a sneaky best ball guy that I wrote about at FTN. Like, he had 1 game where he actually played meaningful snaps last year. It was a playoff game against, I think, the Packers. Cooper Cup was out, and he went for 46 yards and a touchdown, 6 catches. Like, he's talented, and he's gonna play more. Um, I'm not really interested in Tyler Higbee. I understand why people are, because Gerald Everett's gone. But like, for me, like, tight end, like, you just need tight ends that are gonna run routes. I don't care about snaps. Like, Higbee's gonna play snaps, but he led all tight ends in run blocking snaps last year, and he was like 22nd among tight ends in routes run. And yes, I understand Gerald Everett's gone, but like, they're really high on Jacob Harris right now. this is still going to be a team that wants to run the football and play good defense, which they have probably a top 5 to 7 defensive unit. So for me, like Higbee, I understand. Like he's had what 5 games people were holding on to. It was like the 4 game stretch or 5 game stretch 2 years ago. Then it was the Eagles game last year where he had 3 touchdowns, which was clearly an outlier game. Like he's a really talented player and he's gonna have some good games, but like I don't see him being like as trustworthy in fantasy as a lot of other people do. So I'm kind of like, for me, like I would rather take Irv. I'd rather take I would just rather, if I'm waiting at tight end, like just take like guys like Cole Kmet and Troutman, like, and just kind of pair
Yeah,
those guys and hope one of them hits, because like those guys actually run routes, especially
right.
Cole Kmet. So
Exactly. And I feel like I'm
Higbee's the one
learning
guy that I'm
too.
not really on.
Yeah, with the tight end position, it's really like whoever is on the bandwagon. Like you either like the guy after the Holy Trinity and then Kyle Pitts. It's kind of like Hawkinson, Andrews, and then it's a free for all at that point at who you have decided that you prefer. Higbee, not a fan. Don't think that is going to be a scenario. Maybe in redraft, if you can hit lucky on certain weeks, yeah, that'll be your dude. But I almost would rather have Ingram, which everyone knows is hard for me to even say. So
I drafted him
agree
today.
with you. You did.
Yeah, he was my second tight end. He was my second tight end. And he went in the 12th round. So like, whatever.
Yeah, that's fair. And he's
But like,
dropping very far, and I
when he
think
gets traded to Buffalo, though, it'll be nice at the deadline.
yeah,
That's
exactly. He
happening,
needs to
by the
get
way.
traded. That's the thing. The second he gets traded, he's going to do fantastic.
He's getting
I think
I've called it so many weeks now. He's getting
Yeah,
traded
I've been saying
to
it. I
Buffalo at
thought
the
it was going to
deadline.
end up happening when Rudolph came over. I think, with all the Giants picks that they do have, and I always joke that I'm not going to talk about the Giants, but it comes up, it's impossible for me not to talk about them. But
I do the same
they have
thing
enough
on the
draft picks.
podcast. I bring up the Bills every podcast, so it doesn't
I
matter.
cannot. It's impossible. I think no matter what, I think that the Giants next, they have 10 draft picks. It's a lot of draft capital. They have the room next year to take a tight end. And I think that's what ends up happening. I think that they take a guy next year. I think that Ingram goes, something's happening in the tight end position. What worries me is they do like him as a locker room guy. And of course, the Giants love their locker room guys as bad as it is for their organization. But we'll go back to the NFC West. Who's winning this division? We've got plus 162 for the Rams, 5.5 to 1 for the Cardinals. Who has the advantage? Do you think it is the Rams? Because I think it's impressive that they're putting them over even the 49ers, who are plus 190.
I think the Rams should be the preseason favorite, just after the way they played last year and the obvious upgrade they have at quarterback now. But there's some caveats here, right? Like if you told me Seattle would call plays on offense like they did in the first half, I'd be higher on them. And San Francisco's like the wild card because their entire team was hurt last year, but like
Mm-hmm.
top to bottom, they're super talented, right? Their defense, their entire D line was hurt, and we know when they're healthy, they're going to get pressure. And their secondary was banged up, and then obviously, Debo and Kittle missed a lot of time. And if Trey Lance is as good as he looks like he could be, like that could just change the dynamic of the entire offense. But I have to pick the Rams now just because I think they have the most balanced and just complete roster, right? Like their defense is better than Seattle's and Arizona's by large margin. You can make the case like if you want to say Kyler and Russ are better than Stafford, that's fine. But like it's not like a crazy gap. Like Stafford's really good.
Mm-hmm. And then you have to look
Um,
at the roster too, because I do think the roster on the Rams can maybe output that as well.
yeah, it's like it's tough. Like I said, do not play survivor pools and pick games from this division. Just not supposed to pick division games anyway, but especially this division, just
Yeah.
don't do it. But like this is the best division in the league, and like just there's talent everywhere. Defense, quarterback, receive, like there's just so much talent in this division. So like if everyone can stay healthy, like
It's going to be a
there's gonna
bloodbath,
be it's gonna
honestly.
be so it's gonna go it's probably we're getting 2 playoff teams from this division for sure.
Absolutely.
And
I
like
agree with that.
there's going to be a lot of good games, so
Yeah.
it's going to be fun.
I totally believe that. I actually think I like the Seahawks the least out of all of these teams if the 49ers are able to make sure that, Jimmy's doing what he needs to, or if they're putting Lance in. I like
Yeah,
the
like
odds.
Seattle probably has the least talented total roster, I think, of the 4.
Mhm.
but they also have Russell Wilson, so it's like
Right.
that makes up for a lot of it because he went like you take Russell Wilson off the Seahawks or like the Andrew Luck Colts without Andrew, they're a 4-win team. Like they're terrible.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. I think I just like the odds on the Cardinals. And I think I'm maybe a closet Cardinals fan. I'm learning, like, accidentally. I think I'm just, for some reason, Hopkins and Murray stan. I think they just don't get enough love. You know those guys in the league that's like, why do you guys hate them? I love the Murray Hopkins Connor stack is like beautiful to me at this point, if I could get that.
Yeah, I like the Cardinals. I just like them a little less after a certain game that ended in a
Yeah.
Hail Mary last year. But
Yeah.
other than that, they're cool, I guess.
They're cool. You guys, we're going to wrap up on that note because that's hilarious. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter, what's coming up, tell them about Fade the Chalk, the greatest podcast ever.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at apfeifer24. Debro and I are doing the Fade the Chalk podcast, trying to do at least 4 episodes a week. And then closer to the start of the season and preseason stuff, we'll probably be pumping out 5 a week. And still doing basketball at FTN right now, which is crazy with everything that's happening in the NBA. And then, of course, we'll be doing a lot of football stuff once that kind of ramps up. But yeah, I mean, the pod's fun. You've been on it a couple times. I'm sure we'll have you on again, and I appreciate you having me on Small Talk. Like you said, it's been long overdue.
It's a blast. Make sure you guys go follow him on Twitter. Check out Fade the Chalk. Great podcast. Very easy to consume. Not something that's boring. Something, Adam is hilarious on this. Him and Debro have a fantastic chemistry. It's so funny, cracks me up. I still go back and listen to episodes from this past season. Thank you, Adam, for coming on. I appreciate you. And as always, thank you to our sponsors at Tipico Sportsbook. Download their app and they will match 100% of your first deposit up to $750. I will catch you guys next week when I am no longer on vacation.